Right, thank you. I work as for Queensland Health, as has already been said, in the Integrated Regional Cancer Service, and I'm very proud to be part of some of the new initiatives we're doing in Queensland Health. So I've been involved in what is essentially a demonstration or a project where we're looking at having a single deployment of software where we have about 14 different sites linked in. 3 of those are larger rural centres. That's like Gladstone, Rockhampton, Hervey Bay, areas like that. So these sites, we are looking at one piece of software as one installation, so that means all the sites source common information. So we have from that 4 medical oncology sites, and at Rockhampton we have radiation oncology as well. Oops, sorry. In terms of the MDT meeting, there's lots of ways to think of it. I guess in some ways it's something that's been around for a long time where we make clinical decisions, a meeting of the minds. So the task is then, how do we move from something that's been around for a long time into an electronic format that's of value? And I guess if you're some of our clinicians that come along, your contribution is attending the meeting. If, however, you're one of the registrars or the MDT coordinator, there's lots of things to do and organise both before and after the meeting has been completed. So when we looked at building the MDT functionality for our sites, we wanted to say, let's look at paper-based and move it all to electronic. We didn't want people to do anything in duplicate. We wanted to replace the existing processes. We wanted to have generic standardised workflows so the work we did could be a blueprint for other sites if they were interested in adopting our work. We also, at the end, because we have an agreed template for MDT within Queensland Health, the multidisciplinary team meeting document itself, we wanted to auto-populate that at the end, so there was no need to add in manually after we'd done all our collection. I wanted to also cover all of the steps, and at the end we had to be evaluated and look at the timeliness of what we were doing. So in terms of what we put together, we had to say what was in the current software we're using. So we looked at the functionality within the software. This is based on Mosaic, so it's let's look at how we book patients in, and there's electronic scheduling software. The pre-workup that we call, what could we do? We could build different assessments and tools and use functionalities within the software itself. Then the meeting itself, what we could do for that, we could have more data that's collected at that time, we could create a custom layout, and then like all of our clinicians at the end, they have to capture what they've done, whether that's for just activity funding or for dollars. So that had to be part of the workflow. And then miraculously at the end, we wanted to make it very easy for end users to get lots of valuable documentation that we produced automatically as part of the software. So these are just some of the screenshots to sort of go through what we do. So we build individual MDT locations for each of our sites. We then schedule the patients. This is just standard way you do a booking, very quick and easy. So we end up just have a booking for a patient against that MDT electronic schedule. So that's just built up for the day. We'd end up having 10 or 20 patients just booked in like a normal thing. In terms of the assessment that we built, we had to make it really simple and easy. In fact, we've culled this down. We only have 2 screens now. So the first one just has 6 pieces of core information. So that more or less says, what is the question for the MDT? Who's referred? Who is the clinician looking after them? What was their presentation? So that may be as simple as from the surgical unit. And then the large section in the middle there is really, most of the time, just copied and pasted from our referrals that come in normally electronically or by PDF. So we're not doing any manual entry. And that's really the presentation to date. We also offer at the bottom a drop-down selection of what type of investigations are we going to discuss at the meeting, if there's any relevant comments against them. From that, then, we created some bespoke reports. The first one really is just to say a pick list if we needed to get the charts from medical record. Just really simple, the patient demographics for each of the MDT sites. The second one is what is used as the basis for the actual MDT. So this is saved electronically as a PDF and sent to those that are going to attend the meeting. So again, it's those 6 core pieces of information that we use as the discussion point for the meeting. So these are then presented for each of the MDT meetings for each of the sites. There's also a diagnosis panel within the software. So when this is completed, we're bringing in the diagnosis, the morphology, the date of the diagnosis, the tumour markers, also the staging, and also there's another tab with tumour. So if we've collected metastases, that's brought in as well. In terms of the second screen for the assessment, as I said, we do have a Queensland Health agreed standard, so that was very easy to guide us on what all the important question was what type of information do we collect? Are we collecting a lot of extra information that's never used or not directly of value to our MDT team? So we have simple things that can be completed either before or after the meeting, say like the MDT location, what's the ECOG status, have they consented to being discussed, the comorbidities, etc. But in fact, at the actual meeting, there's only two things that really need to be completed, because there seems to be this fascination for doing live data entry at the meeting that I'll talk about. So really, if someone is doing that, they have to select at a high level what is the treatment option. Are we going for systemic therapy or radiotherapy? And then actually recording the body of the text of what was discussed and the treatment outcomes. So they're the two pieces that can be done live at the meeting. Then at the bottom, we very importantly split up who attended, and you'll see why we do this. Who's the MDT lead? This links into MBS funding. Who are the consultants we can claim for? And then all the other people that attended the meeting. I put this up a screen here to say we need to get the data balance right. This is one of the lymphedema assessments that I've been working on with the OTs for a long time, saying, you can just collect too much data, and that's too much of an impost for people. We need to be very mindful that every piece of data that we collect does have dollars and resources against it, and needs to be useful in the future when we're doing evaluation. We construct a special view for our MDT coordinators, like a tab in the software, and this has the most common useful bits of information. So we have the staging or the diagnosis panel there, we have the progress notes available electronically, and then on the right is really a widget, so it allows someone to do live data entry at a workstation, and then this is automatically updated on this screen here for everybody to see. In terms of when the meeting itself is then completed, everybody that uses our system at the end has to go in and say, yes, that went ahead, so we're capturing the appointment. So it's just the terminology that's used. It's like completed, we did it, whether that's for funding or activity. So when people do this, it's really just one button they press capture. We're actually capturing the 871, which is the MDT lead. If you have a billing or charging interface, then you can use this way, in fact, to collect all of the participants as well that's pushed out. If you don't have that, then we also have a paper-based that I'll show you as well. So it does cover both options if you're using a billing interface or just there's nothing in place like that. Then in the background, in this particular product, there's lots of magic we can do with triggers and things that automatically create documents and merge them together. And I guess that's what we wanted to do for our end users. They didn't have to go in and do anything manually. In this software, everybody has like their home page, and there waiting for them miraculously is 3 documents for them to review. So the first one is the cover letter that goes to the GP. So when we put this together, it more or less brings in all the demographics, it looks at the referring GP, it completes all of the information, and it puts it on a letter here that perfectly folds up into an envelope with the addressogram in the right spot. So this is the cover letter to the GP. We also send out the MDT document itself. So this is an example of our Queensland Health one at the top. That very same information that you've seen on the assessment. In fact, on that screen, there is not one extra piece of information that isn't in this document here. We're very careful about data collection and how we use it. So that's the top of the screen, and then the bottom, the page, and the bottom just shows you how we collate all this information, again, electronically. So the idea is that the information is done live at the meeting and the QA is done so that really there is no need to tidy up this document. That's the intent for it. They obviously all have a QA or review step, but the idea is with the electronic population, you would be tidying up the actual information in the assessment itself. So this then stays as an electronic document within Mosaic. You could print it and put it in the chart as well, and it's posted out to the referring doctor. Okay. The second document we produce is to do with our friend the MBS claim. So we do a cover letter, very nice, just explains what's going on. I mean, we couldn't just send this form to the patient, here it is, sign it. Am I going to be out of pocket? So it explains, the doctor mentioned to you early on that we were going to discuss you at the meeting. Here's the form so we can claim it. There's no out-of-pocket expense for you. And then to the right here is a separate document. And as you can see in the software then, we're pulling out automatically who is the MDT lead and the clinicians we're actually going to charge for on the bottom right-hand side. So really nice to bring this all together automatically for people to use. We also had to then create a detailed user guide for MDT coordinators, and also instructions on how to set up some of the functionality in the software. In talking about challenges, there is the diagnosis panel that you saw within there, but the sites that I've talked about are regional sites, so sometimes we don't have registrars for medical oncology. Often this is a surgical MDT, so in our software we're mandated that that type of information can only be completed by clinicians. So I guess We've worked around the problem differently at our two sites that use this. One is that we utilise the registrars at the time of the MDT or when everybody's left to then complete that panel. Or at our second site, we're very lucky to have a professor at the PA who is not only the lead but also QAs and does this part of the entry into the system itself. In terms of live data capture, everybody seems to be fascinated by this. And I guess it's nice to see it, but it does put an impost on the person doing it and their accuracy. It also, to some extent, does change the dynamics and the timing of the meeting, which most people have in fact liked. That sometimes we found when you suddenly have to look at the screen, make sure it's accurate, when the lead then has to reiterate the treatment option, that it slows down the meeting and sometimes even gives people a chance to contribute that before felt it was a bit rushed or they didn't have time to consider. So we are doing this at both of our sites now. Again, they are different models. It'll be interesting to see how we mature over time. One site, it's the registrars or junior house officers. At the other side, it's the MDT coordinator themselves. As I mentioned before, getting the right balance of data that we're collecting is very important. I guess I've done lots of work in data over the years, and we have to consider the collection of data to be something that does have time and resources against it. And of course, moving forward, we'll be able to interrogate this. The last thing I wanted to talk about is the MBS, just out of interest. For those of you that haven't got this memorised, there are 2 MBS items that we can claim for these type of services. So there's the MDT lead, which is the 871, and this is 872 for all the other people who attend. So it says there has to be attendance by a medical practitioner. This case conference has to be discussed for at least 10 minutes, and we have to have people with diverse backgrounds that are present. It also says in the MBS that the patient has to be aware that they're being discussed. So I guess we're aware from an audit perspective that even if the doctor mentioned that to the patient, we would like something a bit more formal. So in fact, that's part of our referral documentation that's come in and checked and signed by the doctor that they're aware of this in case the audit ever happened. So that was the first thing. So I guess the challenges then for us were the doctors from different areas of specialty? Yes, that was not a problem. Were they discussed for 10 minutes? Head and neck, yes. By the time we got to some of our straightforward surgical patients, they can just be a few minutes. Patient aware, they're not going to be there at the meeting, so that's a bit different. We have to make sure we've got that covered off. And we needed the patient's signature. This is very different to normal GP clinics or doctor's consultations. The patient's not there. In some of our instances, they're a long way. So I guess we had to think, will we wait until they appear again, or will we post the actual forms out to them, which other sites have done with nearly 100% success rate. So I guess that's something we had to be aware of. In terms of the dollars, I guess some of our sites within Queensland Health, there's very different responses to the concept of claiming for MBS, and some clinicians, there's like a barrier that goes up. No, we're not interested in that. That's dollars. We're just here for clinical care. So I guess we had to make this fairly seamless and not an impost on them. So I'm just showing you out of interest some of the dollars related to this. So this is the 871, the MDT lead. On the right-hand side is the 85% claim figure. For each of those that attend, they can claim up to $31.80. If I took a scenario where we just claim for 4 doctors and you only discuss 10 patients at the MDT for 48 weeks a year, that's $80,000. Now you're all sitting in the audience thinking, Brett, we do a lot more than 10 at our site. So this type of money can easily fund positions and MDT coordinators, especially at larger sites. So it's just something to consider. It is a real money spinner, of course. So moving forward, I guess we're looking at, there is a MBS review task force at the moment looking at 5,700 items, and of those are the items related to oncology and specifically MBS. So they're looking, and some of the recommendations would be that we no longer have the impost of the 10 minutes. If you think about how long the registrar and the MDT coordinator take in the pre-workup so that we can discuss them quickly at the meeting, perhaps that's not fair. So that's one of the things that's being considered. What tasks I can automate, if you select a certain thing, can I send a referral in the system? Getting feedback on how the system is operating. Do we need to tweak it? Do we need to refine it? And also, now that we've got data, we've been going live since about September at our first site, what will be of value for the MDT team itself to get out of the system? What reporting do we need and what trends are going to be useful for them? So thank you. I'd like to thank New South Wales Cancer Institute for accepting this paper and also to being able to share our MDT experience today.